This is what 19 hours on the world's longest flight on the best business class in Singapore Airlines is really like. But first, let's rewind to step one, which is actually getting to JFK Airport from Manhattan. And even though I was about to take a very bougie plane ride, I was all for travel hacks and deals, taking an Uber shuttle for the first time, which essentially picks you up with other passengers for a flat rate of $15. And it was a pretty stress-free ride, so I'm happy to recommend that. And here we are at JFK Airport, and the natural next step is to go find my boarding pass. So I lug my little backpack and suitcase, which were not as smooth as I would have liked, and I quite quickly find Singapore Airlines, specifically going into the business class line, which had no line, so I felt kind of special. This is my first time ever flying Singapore Airlines, and definitely my first time flying their business class. So what was exciting was I instantly picked up my boarding pass, and then there was such a long line at security, but little did I know that if you fly business or first class, you go to your whole other separate area for security, which means it is a lot shorter. And then what I was also excited about was the fact that our business class ticket allows us to go to a lounge. And then this is where my kind of choice paralysis came in, I'll say. So because Singapore Airlines at JFK does not have their own lounge. So I basically got to pick between this place called like the Hello Lounge and then Air India. And for some reason, when I walked by the Hello Lounge, there was a line. I don't know why I wasn't feeling it. So then I immediately went to Air India, maybe because I was like curious about Indian food. I don't know. I was hungry. And then when I went in there, it was definitely small. Like, I will say I'm so grateful for a lounge where I can just eat whatever I want, but it was definitely smaller than some other lounges I've been to. And as I was sitting there, the first thing that I did when I popped open my laptop and then used their Wi-Fi was to look up photos of the other lounge that I had access to. And instantly I was like, okay, I made the wrong decision in the lounge. Let me go on over there to the Hello Lounge. But why not get a little quick bite first before we leave, aka Indian food and a Diet Coke with ice, of course, and their little quiche situation. But of course, when I go down to Hello Sky, they tell me that I only can go into one lounge, and because I've already been into the India lounge, I cannot get into this lounge. But it's okay, we gotta embrace the fact that we even have a lounge to begin with, and I pop back open my laptop and use that Wi-Fi, because I might as well do some video editing while I'm here. So the point of me being in the lounge was, of course, to chill, but also I got to the airport earlier than my mom, who I was going to be taking this flight with. She was stuck in some major New Jersey traffic. So I decided to check out the menu that would be on my Singapore Airlines flight. And before I know it, my mom joins me. And we're only here for about 45 minutes or so. Time goes by pretty quickly, and then it is time to board. And as we're starting to board, I am like pinching myself. My adrenaline is going because I will tell you, it's been a dream, especially of my mom's, to fly Singapore Airlines business class. Like, I have distinct memories being like 5 or 6 years old, and one of my first memories is her telling me how much she wants to fly Singapore Airlines on the business class. So this really felt like a dream come true, and especially I was grateful that I was able to do this with my mom. And of course, the first step is checking out and doing a little mini tour of our pod. The fact that I can say I have a pod on a flight is crazy. So you basically have your own individual, like I said, pod, or kind of this little space that's kind of blocked off with a very comfortable chair that goes all the way back. They give you pillows, blankets, of course. You have some sort of gear like the headset, which was very nice and noise canceling, as well as some little swag, I'll call it, from an eye mask to slippers, as well as some fancy buttons for all the things you're going to do on this 19-hour flight, which I did not process in the moment was the longest flight in the world, and now feels even crazier as I watch this video back. Something you'll learn about me is I despise socks and tight shoes for some reason, so I was very excited to put these slippers on immediately. And something that I really appreciate about the Singapore Airlines flight is like they have all these little like nooks and crannies for you to store your stuff and of course put your feet up, and it's very well thought out because they really take advantage of every part of your space that you have. So the first step is the lovely flight attendants will come by and ask if you want a little bev, orange juice or champagne, and even though orange juice kind of tastes like vom to me sometimes, I don't know why, I was like, okay, I got to take advantage of every single amenity that they have to offer on this flight, and you will see that I definitely do that. Also, like the piping hot towel to wash our hands, that hurt so bad, but I was like, I must. And with that, we are taking off soon for our flight from New York all the way to Singapore, which, as you've seen all over this video, is 19 hours. So we're gonna get strapped in, and a big part of that is, what will I be eating? So Singapore Airlines especially is known for their incredible menu. Like, you will not think that this is airplane food that you're about to eat, and you can order it at any time. So we have 2 different set meals that will be happening at the beginning and end of our flight, and within that there are a few options for you to choose from. So usually they'll do like an option that is kind of related to the location that you're coming from, aka like American food or coming from New York, as well as an option to represent where you'll be going, so Asian food or Singapore, and they work with like executive chefs to develop and curate this menu. I did bring my wired headphones, but little do I know, on business class you get these brand spanking clean, extremely noise canceling headphones. And thank you to my mom who let me sit on the window seat so I could watch us as we took off from JFK Airport. And it's about 11 p.m. at this point, which normally I would be fully in bed ready to go to sleep, but I told myself, you are not catching any Z's until you take off and have your first meal, which happens about an hour and a half into the flight after it takes off. So I was getting myself situated and comfy. The flights get very cold, as if you know, if you've taken a flight. So I brought my trusty little thin but comfortable hoodie for me to wear. And then it was an exciting time to go through the entire lineup of movies that were offered on the flight so that I could understand what I was about to watch, as well as the other movies on backup that I would watch later on in the flight. As you can see on our little tracker, we have over 18 and a half hours left. So it was time to get going with a movie. And I was very excited to watch an oldie but a goodie but an iconic, The Dark Knight. 30 minutes or so in, they've already got the lights back on, which to my brain signals, okay, something related to dinner is coming soon. And I wanted to get comfy and test out the little buttons to maneuver the chair so you can kick it up and then kind of really get cozy, which was very exciting because I'm a crisscross applesauce kind of girl. We ordered beverages first, and I'm not a big alcohol individual, even though I know that this is a big perk on flights, but I was excited to see they had some mocktail options. So I got this orange juice Sprite situation, which truthfully was very sweet, but that's more about me, less about them creating it. And then the menu, I saw sea bass noodle soup, and I was like, oh yeah, heck yeah, I'm gonna do that. They bring you some nuts. These were very good nuts, but I didn't want to get too full because I know nuts can fill up your tummy. And then I proceeded to get even more comfortable. As you can see, I was feeling hoodie off, blanket on, and they had a very nice semi-weighted blanket, which was perfect, but it was a little bit dangerous because I had to make sure that I did not want to fall asleep. And it was perfect timing because our first meal was being served after they set the table, which is so cute that they do that. We had a little smoked salmon salad. So I remember when I was young, my mom telling me not to eat cold seafood appetizers on flights, precisely because when I was about like 10 years old, we did a very long flight, not as long as this one, but like 15 hours or so to Beijing. I ate a cold shrimp salad, ate it real fast, and then I was puking the entire rest of the flight, all over the seat, all over my pants. So given I was with my mom on this flight, I did kind of hear her kind of in my periphery, in my brain, but the salad was good, and I can confirm happily that I did not puke after. And I'm also happy to confirm that the hype for the garlic bread is very real. When I was doing my pre-flight research, everyone was like, get the garlic bread when they come around with the basket of breads. And even better, they gave this little tiny, very high quality olive oil that is now in my kitchen. Okay, so for the main course, like I mentioned, I got fish noodle soup, and these were hefty chunks of fish. Like, once again, this was one of those moments where it just hit me, like, how crazy this flight was. Like, I'm eating a full, fresh fish noodle soup while I'm a bajillion feet in the air. Like, that's wild. And the fish, they were hunky pieces. It was interesting because while I did like this dish, there was something buttery about the fish, which should be a positive, but like almost felt overly indulgent. But it did come with these very pickled cucumbers, which were helpful in kind of breaking it up for me. But still, I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. So we were satisfied and full. But thankfully, because I was traveling with my mom, our pro tip is always ordering different main dishes so we get to try more food. And then it was time for dessert. And like I mentioned, I was kind of full by this point, so I'm really sorry to say I did not completely finish this little mousse situation with mango on top. It was very sweet, and I'm one of those Asian girlies who's like into the not too sweet desserts. and it kind of did knock me out. And for the next amenity that I was very excited to unbox, so essentially this is another pro tip: ask the flight attendants for an amenity kit. They won't necessarily give this out to you unless you ask, but essentially these are all Le Labo skincare and washing up products. So unboxing it, we've got some hand lotion as well as chapstick and facial mist, which would really help out later. And then on top of it all, I asked the flight attendant for a toothbrush and some toothpaste because this was going to be my little kit in order to wash up for the rest of the night before I knocked out. And then I scurried along in my slippers to the bathroom. It's really important to me that when you're on such a long flight, you wash up as if you would before you actually go to bed, because you don't want your teeth rotting from all the food that you just ate on the flight. And one of my little hacks is that there's this cleanser where essentially they're little strips and you just activate them with water, and it saves me some packing space so I don't have to bring a whole liquid cleanser with me. And I don't know if anyone else is with me, but I feel like bathrooms on flights are double-edged swords. Like, the con is that they do smell a little nasty and they are a bit claustrophobic, even though I do see the flight attendants cleaning the bathrooms. But then on the flip side, it feels very nice to finally be able to stand and have like my completely own private space, which is unique to flights, even in the situation where I am very lucky to have my own sleeping pod. And as we're on our way back, you can see that my mom is knocked out and there are a lot of other people getting ready to sleep. So apologies that it's a little difficult to film this when it's completely dark and I wasn't about to flash anyone, but essentially another amazing part of this flight is that not only do you have a lie back chair, but actually in order to sleep, you ask the flight attendant and they'll come and like completely flip your chair like 180, and then you kind of miraculously see that there is a whole mattress behind the chair that you then sleep on. So you literally have bed. This is definitely unique to Singapore Airlines, and for comparison, thankfully the lady next to me was not there, so this is what a normal chair looks like. And then for comparison, this is what my now prepared bed chair looks like. Pillows, blankets, the whole shebang, and I was ready to lie down. And even though I was objectively tired, because at this point it was about 1 a.m., which normally I would be fully knocked out, I was definitely running on some adrenaline and just processing how crazy this all was, that I was laying down fully flat in a flight. Like, my legs had the ability to go out straight. I would never have imagined that I would get to experience this, so I feel very lucky. And nothing confirms the flight is comfortable like me sleeping a whole 8 hours uninterrupted, which I don't think has ever happened on a flight before. I was waking up looking real gross and the lights were on, which definitely nodded to me that, okay, it's time to wake up, and hopefully that means there is a meal coming soon. And boy, was I right, because before I know it, it's deja vu, and we've got a cold seafood salad appetizer about to enter our laps. This honey mustard, arugula, crouton, giant shrimp berry situation was probably one of my favorite things I ate on the flight. I know your taste buds react a little differently when you're up in the air, so perhaps that's why this cold dish was refreshing and hit a little bit different. And I sincerely apologize that my toes are in some of these clips because I was so comfortable, and like I said, my feet were all splayed out and I am not a sock gal. Ooh, and the sweet angelic lady is back with the bread basket. Of course, I got the garlic bread again, but then I also got this crostini situation that she recommended, which was exciting because not only did that mean I got a tiny little canister of olive oil, but I got a tiny little balsamic vinegar to go with it. And this is also deja vu, especially for you watching this, because I am back washing up after what is basically my breakfast, even though I had a shrimp salad, but it counts. And I walk back to my seat. Hello, Mom. She is fully in tune, locked into a movie. And then the meal that I was probably most excited about, this hoisin pork belly char siu fried rice. Ugh. It was funny because when I ordered it, the flight attendant was like, oh, if you want the heavier option, go with the pork belly. And without hesitation, that's what I picked. And the word heavier did not deter me at all, but rather made me more excited to have it. Even better, I still had the last quarter of the dark night to get going while I ate this scrumptious meal. So it was a very, very good moment. And I got to try my mom's dish, which she ordered the healthier option, which was this like chicken and couscous situation, which made me happy that I had picked the pork belly, if I'm going to be honest. And despite so much of the flight passing, we still have 7.5 hours, which means that we've done 11 hours or so. And maybe normally if I had 7.5 hours of flight, which would be like the normal length of a flight, I would kind of freak out. But actually, I was very happy about that because I was like, great, even though I got a full night's rest, I still have so much of this flight left for me to take advantage of and enjoy. Because if I'm in the longest flight in the world and I get to sit in business class, I am soaking up every single moment of opportunity. Like my multi-course dessert. So when I had done my pre-flight research, I had seen that you can basically pick as much as you want. It's kind of low-key like a buffet in the sense it's all you can eat. And so when she brought out the multiple dessert options of fruit, cake, or cheese, I did not hear the word or, and I basically was like, and we're gonna get them all. And this blueberry key lime cheesecake, I'm a big key lime girl, so that was one of my favorite bites as well. And it was really here in this moment I felt so at peace and had to do my happy dance. I was watching Miss Congeniality 2. I would alternate between bites of cheesecake and then cheese and then fruit. And I felt like if you know the girl dinner trend and why that took off, like this was kind of like girl dinner or girl dessert. It's just like a bunch of random things that I really enjoyed and I can keep popping in my mouth one by one. And somehow there's still another dessert because they come by with an option of chocolate truffles, so I can't say no. And then instantly after the meal is served, they turn the lights off again. That is one thing about flights. I feel like it's like they turn the lights on, they turn the lights off, and then I'm really impacted by whatever situation the light is giving. Because immediately once the lights turned off, I was getting kind of sleepy. And I know you're not supposed to sleep immediately after eating, but I am very guilty of doing this. And then I knocked out for another 2 hours, which meant we were coming down to the final stretch of the flight. And in this case, when you have such a long flight, the final stretch is still 3 hours to go. So I was like, okay, no more sleeping. The lights are still off, but we're going to enjoy some tea. And I might as well use the service where I asked the flight attendants to just give me random food. So I got some nuts, some chips, and luckily I had brought my Kindle, so it was time to read. But even more so, I had kind of planned out a mission for myself before getting on this flight. Knowing that I would have all this uninterrupted time, I was like, let's put on fake nails. So for context, I never really have fake long nails because I just feel like they're very inconvenient in real life. But I was like, okay, I'm about to go on vacation and I have this flight where I can put them on and I can watch a movie and I'll be really relaxed. And I'm saying this all in a tone because quite immediately after getting off this flight and landing in Singapore, I was ripping off those nails. Like they were not sticking, and I don't regret using this flight time as a little activity because it was kind of funny to be like sitting here and just like gluing nails to myself, but I will say none of them really stuck on. So I'm just a little bitter about it, if I'm going to be honest. And my next activity on my list was finishing up my book on my Kindle. I was reading a murder mystery where the main character is basically an old Asian grandma in San Francisco, so it is very entertaining, so much so that I actually finished the book on the flight, and I got to enjoy it with one of the snacks that I had requested, which were caviar potato chips. And we're 18 and a half minutes into this video, and in parallel, basically almost 18 and a half hours into our flight, which means we were almost done and ready to land in Singapore around 5 a.m. local time. And I could not end this video without saying an enormous infinite thank you to my mother who made this all possible. She is an icon. Without her, this flight would not have happened. She was basically invited to speak at a work conference because she is a boss. And like I said, Singapore Airlines business class has been something she's talked to me about since I was a little child. So to see her being able to accomplish that dream and achieve it for herself, and then I just got to be the very lucky plus one, means more than words can explain. And now I will never be able to see another flight the same way again.